Board meeting July 14th, 2021 in person and with teleconferencing. Your comment by phone. Speakers will be placed on hold until it is their turn to provide their comment to the board. Once the speaker is done with the 3-minute speaker and or 20-minute agenda item time allotment is met, they will be disconnected from the call. Speakers may continue to observe the meeting on the YouTube channel. If you wish to make a comment in person, you will need to complete a speaker card and give it to staff or the board secretary, wear a face covering, adhere to physical distancing protocol, and complete a brief COVID-19 screening, which includes having your temperature taken upon entering the room. We ask that you only stay at the meeting to provide your comment unless space is available. Space will be limited due to physical distancing and on a first come, first served basis. In-person comments will go first. Submissions must comply with a 3-minute time limit. A total time for public input on each agenda item will be limited to 20 minutes. Speakers are cautioned that under California law, no person is immune from liability for making intentionally false or defamatory comments regarding any person simply because those comments are made at a public meeting. Comments received shall become part of the official record. I would like to ask board members to respond to the following question as I call your name. Are you able to hear our proceedings on your end? Ms. Burrell is absent. Ms. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes, now I can.
Thank you. Ms. Wynn?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
And Ms. McGrady. Members of the public who would like to address the board in a closed session item on the agenda may do so now. I don't believe we have any calls in and we don't have any cards, so we'll move on. The Board of Trustees will go to closed session and reconvene the regular meeting at 10 a.m.
Is there any discussion, Ms. McGrady?
No, we're just going to close. Thank you.
No, I have one. It was supposed to be an area for discussion for the board members. So I'm just adding before the board goes to closed session. I'm asking in regards to 17F, the conference with legal counsel, existing litigation for 54956.9 D1. Has Harris and Associates been invited and offered to attend on this party's behalf?
No, ma'am.
Thank you for the record.
Okay, we're going to closed session. Good morning. We would like to reconvene the regular meeting of the Antelope Valley Union High School District. Please be advised that the Board of Trustees are participating in this regular board meeting July 14th, 2021 in person and with teleconferencing. The meeting is being recorded and all actions will be taken by a roll call vote. As noted on the agenda, anyone wishing to observe the meeting may do so via AVUHSD YouTube channel. If you are participating remotely, you will be permitted to share your comments by phone. Speakers will be placed on hold until it is their time to provide their comment to the board. Once the speaker is done or the 3-minute speaker and or 20-minute agenda item time allotment is met, they will be disconnected from the call. Speakers may continue to observe the meeting on the YouTube channel. If you wish to make a comment in person, you will need to complete a speaker card and give it to staff or board secretary, wear a face covering, adhere to physical distancing protocol, and complete a brief COVID-19 screening, which includes having your temperature taken on entering the room. We ask that you only stay at the meeting to provide your comment unless space is available. Space will be limited due to physical distancing and on a first-come, first-served basis. In-person comments will go first. Submissions must comply with the 3-minute time limit. A total time for public input on each agenda item shall be limited to 20 minutes. Speakers are cautioned that under California law, no person is immune from liability for making intentionally false or defamatory comments regarding any person simply because those comments are made at a public meeting. Comments received shall become part of the official record. I would like to ask board members to respond to the following question as I call your name. Are you able to hear our proceedings on your end? Ms. Perrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Wynn?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady? Yes. Ms. Rush, would you lead us in the pledge of the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are at 4A, public comments from the floor for Pico items. Do we have any public comments on Pico? Okay, we'll go right on to B. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the insurance policy with Philadelphia Insurance Company for 2021-2022. May I have a motion?
I move.
Ms. Wynn, thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Do we have any discussion or questions? Having a motion and a second, we'll now vote. Ms. Perrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Making sure this is 4B.
We are on 4B. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Wynn?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady? Yes. So the item passes by a vote of 4-0. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees authorize Pico to establish purchase orders with the vendors as presented. May I have a motion?
I move.
Ms. Wynn, thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Any discussion?
I was just wondering, these purchases are they based basically on last year's purchases or 2019 when we did have students in school?
They go out and get some estimates from each of their districts as to what they expect to purchase that year, and then we'll do a purchase order based on that information. So they're planning each year.
Any other questions or discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll now vote. Ms. Perrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Wynn?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. McGrady is a yes. That passes with a vote of 4-0. Excuse me. I'll turn the page. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees award the John Willis RFQ number 01-21-22 and ES Foods a term of agreement from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. May I have a motion? Mr. Rush? Thank you.
Second.
And Ms. Wynn is a second. Do we have any discussion or comments? Okay, having a motion and a second, we'll now vote. Ms. Perrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Was that a yes? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Rush? Yes. Ms. McGrady is a yes, so that item passes by a vote of 4-0. We are on E, the purchase order schedule. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve and authorize the purchases outlined on the attached schedule. May I have a motion?
I move.
Okay, that was Ms. Nguyen and Mr. Rush. Do we have any discussion or comments? Having a motion and a second, we'll now vote. Ms. Perrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush? Yes. Ms. McGrady is a yes. That passes by a vote of 4-0. We'll now reconvene our regular meeting. We are on 6, the recognition reports of public comments. The quarterly Williams Uniform Complaint Procedures Report Summary from April 2021 to June 2021. Ms. Williams?
Yes, there were no complaints during this time period.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Antelope Valley Schools Transportation Report Update, Mr. Hawkins.
We did not have a board meeting in July, so there is no update.
Okay, thank you. From AVTA, Mr. Dan Shy. Okay. Nothing. All right. From CSEA, Ms. Karen White.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good, thank you. Good morning, Board President, Ms. McGrady, board members, Dr. Vieira, Board Cabinet, Mr. Furno, and Ms. Orozco. I apologize that I could not be there in person this morning, but like all of us, we only have a couple of more weeks of school left, and especially for summer school. And we're gearing up for the return of our students to come on campus in August. You know, August sounds so far away, but it will be in our faces in a couple of weeks. I know that there are many students who are anxious to get back to our campuses to see their teachers, their friends, and of course, back to planning the events for our 2021 and 2022 school year. I wish to congratulate Ms. Shannon Williams to her appointment as interim superintendent, and also to Mr. Greg Meehan for his appointment as interim deputy superintendent. We agree with Dr. Vieira's announcement, which went out last week, in that both Ms. Williams and Mr. Meehan have excellent backgrounds and history in working to address any of the district's students or the community needs while maintaining the district's mission. With that, let me express our deepest sympathy for losing our best superintendent ever to retirement. Even though it's well-deserved, he leaves behind very difficult shoes to fill. Dr. Vieira, you have always been a positive voice for the classified employees, besides the certificated students, parents, and the community that you have served so diligently over these years. To say that you're going to be missed, that is an understatement. However, we do wish you the best as you start a different chapter with retirement. We know you and your family won't forget us, or you better not, and we'll see you from time to time. We wish you and your family safe and healthy days as you begin your next adventure. Now to address one of the items on your agenda today, the one that deals with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department's Resource Deputy Program. I read the article in Tuesday's paper and saw the percentages concerning the students, the family members, and what are others that had participated. And I believe it's clear that there are groups who they really don't have an opinion one way or the other, probably because they haven't seen situations that others regard as problems. And that's what we're striving for: improvement, change for those who see it differently. If you don't try to do something in a different way or give it a chance to show it can change, you've condemned it to failure. I hope that you will not condemn this program to failure, but give it the ability to be more productive and conform to the expectations others insist on. And what we know and can see is achievable. There is a need, whether you see it or not, whether it's large or small, it doesn't matter. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. Let's keep our campuses safe. Keep our students, community, and employees safe. Please support this agreement. As we look past this past year and into the future with the new COVID variant that has surfaced, please remember to take care of yourselves and your families by maintaining those steps to protect you from COVID-19 and any other little side charge that it's decided to give us recently. Anyway, enjoy what they seem to say is a cool down. Stay well hydrated during these hot days. And I thank you for your attention. You have a good day and a great week. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now on E, the public comments from the board for agendized items. The public is invited to address the board on any agenda item. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each, and the total time for public input on each item shall be limited to 20 minutes. During public comments, the board listens to concerns and issues. The board may ask questions for purposes of clarification. The law prohibits the board from entering into a dialogue with the public or taking action on items not on the agenda. In-person comments will go first. Are there any comments from the public on agendized items?
We have 2 speaker cards submitted. Ms. Vivian for agenda number 8F, D, and E.
Thank you.
Hello, do I take this off first?
Please, thank you.
Before my time starts. Give me a moment, because I just had to write a lot of stuff. I thought it was 9 a.m. Thank you, Rose, for letting me know it was. And I'm gonna start now. I'm gonna try to read off what I wrote this morning about the sheriffs that we do not need to have in our schools. It's kind of funny, I wanna tell you a little background real quick about how probation officers have to get degrees to do many, many things. Maybe some of you don't know that about law enforcement. Some of the people that are sheriffs don't have that, not at all. They don't have the background of working with juveniles and different things. So I'm gonna talk off the top of my head. And so they don't understand how kids really have to be talked to and treated a certain way. Sometimes you think you gotta put them on the floor and mistreat them and do what you gotta do to get compliance. Teachers, some of them do not have the skills to know how to address these kids or some kids because they're not disciplining them or they want to hurt them. They want them to go through the system of this police, school to police. Trust me, I know. I'm telling you now, just as we had that incident that happened around here with someone saying they were shot by someone in these apartment buildings. I'm just talking off the top of my head. Nobody really worried about those people in those apartments. They were sitting there, treated them like criminals when there was someone trying to be a sheriff. So I'm talking off the top of my head. No, we don't need to, wait, let me go back. Cancel the contract because it's not needed. Do I feel probation officer staff would be a better fit? Yes, but do I feel like I want them? Maybe no, but guess what? They know more than what our officers are, and they're afraid to speak up about some things. So let's do a favor. Let's do these kids a favor. Treat them right and do everything they should be done, how they should be treated, which is simply treat them like the kids that they are that make mistakes like all of us have. Now, all this stuff about these PIMs and all this, keep doing these preliminary or all these temporary positions. No, I disagree. You know why? We got enough money sitting in this here district here from Mr. Vieira, he's a personal attorney, where I feel there's enough money to get qualified people. I know that they're qualified. I know Shannon Williams is qualified. I can say that, but I can tell you this as a parent. When certain things went down in investigations, paperwork came from where? Well, guess where it may have came from, in my opinion. James Stockdale, it came to an investigation of a meeting that I put for a parent meeting, a personal one. James Stockdale tells everybody it was on a social media post. It's in our paperwork for an investigation, basically with a handwritten saying it came from either this parent or myself or so. How dare someone to go into these kids' websites and stuff and do things such as to try to harm them. So all these temporary positions, what I feel like you gave Anthony Hunt, to come to someone's home and James Stockdale and to come to personal meetings, and they're supposed to be great teachers. I'm not gonna be treated like Diane Beard of Palmdale District. You don't like me speaking, but I'm gonna say this. No, let people that you can pay enough money to get new faces, get people. I'd like you to the next one, or you want to wait till the other people can speak on the agenda? Oh, it's agenda items, right? I'll sit down. Thank you.
Good morning, board members. My name is Juanette Colors. I am also a board member. Good morning, David. And I'm speaking here as a board member because I think all of us were voted in to be here for the benefit of the children and the children to be our priority. And I know that you are voting today in reference to continuing a relationship with law enforcement. I want you to think about our children first. Think about those individual kids and what they really need, and is law enforcement what they need? And I would agree it is not. And only 4% of the population is in need of it. And I think if there's an emergency and for any safety precautions, you can simply call 911 for that. I would urge you to utilize those funds in a way to enrich the needs of the children that are needing that. I would say, if you guys are not familiar, that there was a board of supervisors that did have a vote where even if you vote for it today, it needs to go through the county supervisors to be approved. And we will fight that all the way as a part of cancel the contract and as a part of parents and as a part of community leaders. So again, I ask you to think about our children, their safety, their education, their well-being first, as opposed to enrolling and funding law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Raquel Derfler, and I have been a resident of Palmdale since 1992. I'm also a mother. My daughter here, Sophia, she's 15 years old. So I would like to speak about law enforcement in the school. So we in society have been raised with the mantra that education is the great equalizer, that no matter our economic background, gender, or race, a good education will allow us to be successful at whatever we decide we want to become in life. This is predicated on the belief that school is a safe haven from the world, where a student's only concern is their studies, and they should be able to walk the campus without fear. Far too many of our Black and brown students here in the Antelope Valley, to them, this is just a fairy tale. School isn't a comfortable area where they can strive to make their dreams come true, an environment free from racial profiling. It is just one more spot in the world where an individual in a uniform carrying a gun targets them based on the color of their skin. School is where my daughter's best friend, Sophia, learned as a 5th grader that it wasn't safe to be a Black student in school. It was where, to protect herself, she asked her teacher if she could check other on some school form instead of Black, in order to avoid being put into a headlock by the school resource officer. Now let's imagine a different reality for our brown and Black students in the Antelope Valley, where instead of an armed police presence at school, ordinary people in the community work together with the school administration and other groups to make the campus a safe and welcoming refuge for kids to learn, where the money being paid to the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department instead went to fund other local service providers, such as probation peace officers, counselors, and organizations that know how to implement a comprehensive violence reduction strategy, a strategy whose aim is to mitigate violence at school before it occurs. A policy that involves communicating with the students to understand what is going on at any given time on the campus. A plan of action to manage any conflict that arises between the various social groups, and ensuring that students are not only safe during the school hours, but can also travel safely to and from school via safe passage corridors. A school campus where there are mentors and support groups for at-risk students available
30 seconds.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is only when these types of changes are realized on school campuses throughout the Antelope Valley that education will truly be the great equalizer. If this is the type of school environment you would like to see, not only for your own children, but all the children of the Antelope Valley, I encourage you to vote no on renewing the contract with the Sheriff's Department. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is question 3.
Come on, brother. Good morning, everyone. Morning, board. Dr. Vieira. So I am Christian Green. You guys have seen me a couple of times. I'm the coordinator of Council of Contract. I'm a youth pastor out here. I've been out here since 1998. Raised by my grandparents, former foster youth. I'm coming from all different angles on this morning. And so what we're really trying to ask for you guys to do is to really think about care, think about trauma, think about community, and how it looks like in 2021 and moving forward, right? And so we ask that you do not basically renew the contract. We request that we have supportive holistic approaches to school climate, discipline, and safety. On June 8th, there was a motion by Supervisor Holly Mitchell strengthening oversight of school law enforcement services, and there was a vote in favor of this motion. So several of us are working on racial justice and youth development efforts that we're excited to see about this. Supervisor Mitchell and Q will begin to take on oversight of sheriff SROs in schools that began in June of this year. So really just looking at different school campuses, it's all across the nation, it's all across the country, but even in our backyard, Eastside Union High School, we even have Linwood High School. So we have these different models that we can really look at and think about doing. Community coalitions across the state have come together to ensure meaningful oversight of sheriff school resource officers in schools. So my comment today will be to you, Mr. Rush, is to really look at, because I know that you are a retired LA Sheriff's Department lieutenant. So I would love for us to make sure that there is no biases that are there. We want to make sure that we look at there is no conflict of interest that is involved there as well. When we are dealing with human rights, when we are dealing with racial issues, we want to make sure that there is no biases that are involved. And so we want to make sure that we want to shun, as the Bible tells us, I'm a preacher, we want to shun the very appearance of evil. In 2018 to 2019, our school district expulsion rate was 2.6 per 1,000 students. So that's 2,600% higher than LAUSD's expulsion rate, 866% higher than the rest of LA County, and 289% higher than that in the rest of the state of California. When we look at what's going on in our district, we want to make sure that we look at everything that's going on. I know we did a report. We had a report that was presented last month, and even in that, they even said that there is no correlation. There is no correlation between officers and public safety in so many words. Today, we want to offer two solutions. I know I can complain and critique all day, but I am solution oriented. As a professor myself, as a teacher myself, as an educator myself, I want to offer solutions. We have two. One that is trauma-informed officers. Another is a safety-based approach program. So they are ready to go. They are in the community. They are in our own backyard. So why not, you know, Chairman McGrady, President, Clerk, and Mr. Rush, everyone that is on this board, why not us partner up together? So can you stand with us in this movement for truth, racial healing, and transformation? Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. Wellington.
Sorry, brother.
Well, good morning, young people. Glad to see all of you back in the flesh, the real world. It is my great duty and privilege to greet all of you this morning as it relates to the LA Sheriff's contract with our site. You all know our logistics. You know, we have 22 sites, 8 comprehensive, and a bunch of others. And you know our student demographic. Basically 4,000 white, basically 4,000 black, about 16 Hispanic Latino. With that student population and the changing demographics here in the Antelope Valley, I'd like you guys to consider something. Now, I know we've tried in the past. We tried community groups, and maybe what we needed at that point, and back in 2005-06, maybe we needed a little more teeth to the idea. But I can tell you, as a teacher of now 24 years and coached since I was 19 years old, police on campus don't make me feel safe. I'm a big black man to a lot of people, okay? And my skin is enough to cause a gun to be drawn in a traffic stop, at the mall, whether it's my children. My son's 14, he's taller than me, is a long rail of a kid. And you guys know me in multiple capacities in different ways, with my family being very active here in the community. Sheriff deputies on campus don't make me feel safe. When I was in junior high in Los Angeles, Mr. Williams was our safety officer, police officer, LA school police, three-piece suit. All I ever heard Mr. Williams say was get to class on time. I was never threatened by Mr. Williams. I was never made to feel less than. His only role was to help me get to class. I remind everyone in the building that our students' attendance is compulsory. The law mandates that they come to class, right? The law mandates that they come to school. If not, they'll have, where's my click? Okay, man. The law mandates that if they're on the street after 8:30, that they're going to encounter law enforcement. Because we don't want kids breaking into our houses while we're at work, right? That's kind of the point of that law. Well, if we have an incident on campus that requires an arrest, that requires not a search, because we know that, you know, there's interplay between sheriff department and, you know, security on, you know, Fourth Amendment rights, okay? So I really am in favor of us considering redistributing that 1.6 million annually. That could be 20 counselors at 80 grand a piece. And that's a fair starting wage, I believe. You know, the number might be a little bit plus or minus, but let's figure that out. Let's consider it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Marcos Alvarez.
Morning, brothers and sisters. My name is Marcos Alvarez. I came out and lived out here and came out in 1992. My two children attend Knight High School. And I work for LA County Social Services. I should be in negotiations right now, but this is important. This is important right now to address the biases, the racism, and the past practice on behalf of the Antelope Valley Union High School District. All we got to do is look at the board and figure it out, the mental state, okay? I will throw you some names out there. Fresno school trustees are being recalled as we speak for situations that we're talking about right now. There's petitions going around to recall the entire trustees. So I know the Antelope Valley Union High School District is doing the best they can to look out in the best interest of all our students. Money cannot be the driving force on deciding what's in the best interest of all our students. Linwood High School has changed that. Pomona Unified has addressed that. Alley Unified has addressed that. So as a citizen, as a constituent, as a voter, as one who has ran for Palmdale School District, I ask you, let's reach across the lines and address the real issues that are happening with our teenagers in our high school districts, in our middle school districts. I mentioned this last month as I was standing here. We have students who have experienced situations that require and tell them, I'm going to commit suicide, right? We have a low rate of counselors that are available to these very population. So I ask you this. I don't know if any of your children directly go to the public school system and allow and see that a teenager who's 16, who's willing and wants to commit suicide, do we have the resources available right there at that moment, instead of having someone who is full of a vest, 2 pistols, handcuffs? Who is this person going to go to? What is the better choice? What is the long-term solution mentally for all these children that have thought of committing suicide? So with that said, we need training for these mentors, training for these children. training for all these concerts and readily and available. I did have a one-on-one conversation with our Sheriff Villanueva. I asked him the same question. And he went like this, well, he concluded that SROs are there for mentoring. When I was growing up, my mentor should always have been a counselor to take me to the next level. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Comment is from Natasha Weston.
Good morning. A little bit of an emotional topic. I'll try to keep it together. I'm a school counselor in our school district. I have a number of hurtful stories as it relates to the sheriff's department, but I'm going to share one, just one. I had a youth I was working with. She was a foster youth. She had been through unbelievable trauma, and I worked really hard to get a relationship with her because I know relationship is the foundation for changing her. She was making poor choices. And so I just purposed in my mind, I have to take time with this one because she's on a really bad path. So she began to do well, her grades were going up, and I called her in, very excited, just to tell her, I'm proud of you, I see you, keep going, keep going. And maybe 2 or 3 minutes into the conversation, a group of sheriffs or maybe one sheriff in our security, but it was a group of authoritative figures, including the sheriff, and they arrested her in my counseling office pretty, forcefully. And I was devastated. And I thought, after they'd taken her and I shut my door and I cried out to God and I said, when did we get here? When did the school become a grounds for arresting children? I looked a little further. She had done some things in her community that warranted her being arrested. So I get it. But I had worked hard to establish a trusting relationship with this young lady, and it appeared that I called her to my office to have her arrested. That relationship was destroyed. It's hard to get the trust of these kids, especially those that have gone from home to home to home. They've experienced terrible trauma. And this was one of those. And I said, I gotta work with her. And our relationship was severed in that moment when she thought I called authorities to come and get her. And if she had done something and if it, warranted a consequence, an arrest, I get it. But arrest her in the community where it happened, or if it has to be at school, take her to the principal's office. But the counseling office, where we are trying to establish trusting relationships to support these babies to become productive citizens. She was on a bad path, that was clear. But destroying our relationship was wrong. And this is one story of many that I have. And so I am in full support of a plan to do something different. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Comment, Nick Sanchez.
Good morning, I'm Nick Sanchez. I go to Lancaster High School, going to my junior year. I'm here with cancel the contract to ask the board that to reimagine how we treat our students. Obviously, I'm a student and I know students, and I can say that we can benefit from a reimagining of how we do counseling and policing on campus. $1.6 million is a lot of money. And I know my friends who didn't have field trips freshman year, obviously not sophomore because of COVID, but freshman year we did not have access to field trips. We don't have a lot of equipment at the public schools. There's a lot of good programs, specifically at Lancaster with robotics and multimedia. And there's a lot we can do with $1.6 million. One thing we should not do is going to arrest our students who have future, students who should be going on to achieve a lot. I asked the board as a student that we reimagine, cancel the contract. Our members we're not naive, we're smart. We want to imagine something different. We're not coming here naively because we have solutions. we know we can as a community come together and ask students, ask teachers, you have a lot of teachers and folk who are teaching in part of the school district who have solutions to the problem we face, which is incarceration and students' behavior. We have solutions. So we asked the board to give us the chance to reimagine how we approach our students, how we can push them onto better futures, and how we can show them that incarceration is not something that they have to fear, that we can push students in a better way to more opportunities, and to know that there is solutions and there are different methods of approaching our students. And with $1.6 million, and especially in a school like Lancaster, where a majority of students are low income, qualify for free lunch, 1.6 can go a long way for them. So we asked the board to come together with the community, listen to the community, not only the student, but the teachers, the people who work with students, to let us come together as a community and reimagine how we can approach students and how we can make students, how we can make their lives better, how we can approach our students with more paths, more careers, and overall give them a better chance at life. Thank you.
The last comment on this topic is from Mr. Lund.
Hey, how you guys doing today? Can everybody hear me okay? Awesome. Well, my name is Ayinde Love. I'm a community member. I'm also the founder of Gifted Arts and Activism. What we do is we try to make education a little bit more relative for people's consumption. Also, I have a beard that gets in the way of the microphone and speaking sometimes. Hopefully, all you guys are doing well. So I'm here because I think that it's important to distinguish the difference between what protection looks like and what defense looks like, and why that's important for the students that fall under the category of defense right now. Addressing the concerns that the community faces is very, very important, which I understand is why the contract is in place to begin with in California, and within the nation, we got a lot of school shootings that have happened. And because of that, it raises a lot of concerns for people as to how are we going to be able to protect our students, which is why I think it's important that we draw that distinction between what protection looks like and what defense looks like. Because not only just the students that are adversely impacted by school shootings, the shooter themselves also needs to be protected, which means that sometimes when they go home, they may not have the things that they need in order to prevent something like that from happening in the first place. A lot of the times when they go into situations like that, what happens is that they're looking, it's an outward release of something that's happening internally. So in order to protect those students, we need to make sure that we allocate funds in accordance to give them a release that they may not be able to have at home. And I think that the important piece about that is why the majority of the people are here today, is to appeal to you guys and to ask how important is it for that student to get the protection that they need? And what does that protection look like? What is the sociological environments that we're putting our students in that makes them feel safe and okay? And does safety always look like a gun or a badge? Or does it look like a holistic communal approach with love, care, and making sure that we all feel that? When I go home, I don't need to see my parents with a gun to understand the authority that they hold, nor do I need a badge. And I don't think that it needs to be that way in any sort of environment that we have to be in on a day-to-day basis. I think that that should be a very specific form, 30 seconds, that is allocated for very specific punishments. And I don't think that that is the place for a school grounds. And I'm asking you guys to consider the differentiation between protection and defense, and how we can get ahead of something rather than reacting to something. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. We are now on F, public comments from the floor on non-agenda items. The public is invited to address the board on any matter not on the agenda that is within the jurisdiction of the board. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each, and the total time for public input shall be limited to 20 minutes. During public comments, the board listens to concerns and issues. The board may ask questions for purposes of clarification. The law prohibits the board from entering into a dialogue with the public or taking action on items not on the agenda. In-person comments will go first. Are there any comments from the public on non-agenda items?
Yes, Ms. Vivian?
Question. Am I able to watch my 3 minutes instead of being videotaped? But I don't mind being videotaped, but you know how to do it as well, because I want to make sure I'm not going to get cut off still.
It should come up on your.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. It will.
It should, if not, it's a
And it's only because I definitely wasn't prepared, because I said I came at 9, right, to speak, Ms. Russell. So I'm definitely trying to reach out. I'm ready now. I'll start now. I'm really going to say something because the young man that you guys heard, the young man from Lancaster, and last time when I seen Shannon with him do that mental health presentation, I have come to this district with other parents that we were concerned about. DJ Hines, the so-called coach teacher, they called these kids, get out there and play like some niggas on the Highland basketball team. James Stockdale, Anthony Hunt showed up at a private meeting, a parent meeting at Panera Bread. I listen every time I come up here, many people have come up here. I listen to Dan Shaw talk like a dog to Miss Dr. Ruffin. I hear Julie Drakes do all her printing and her making sure that the AV press knows how she's against Black folks getting a job. That young Black man told me this at my parent meeting. I'm just here with him. I'm just here with him. Well, you know what that looks like to me? And Uncle Tom. Because Mr. so-called Stockdale sat there acting like a parent and act like he came to a meeting and said, I just wanted to know why it is, you only get 3 minutes to speak. And we just want to know what else you got to say. Trying to talk about our kids, like what was wrong with them. That coach loved our kids, but he was brought there by the wrong way. He was brought there by another teacher from Highland that recommended him over Mr. Powell, Coach Terrence Powell, who's been there 12 years helping the school with football, with basketball, who he even was there where a student waited at AV High to be promoted to, I think, Davis, because he wouldn't take his scholarship until Mr. Terrence Powell was there, not waiting on Mr. So-called Mr. DJ Hines. I've been saying it since I came. The kids were treated and mistreated with the things that they did to these kids. Their mental health has been suffering. They were treated like dogs. They were treated and misused. And I came to this district with other parents telling you guys that I thought I would get help from you, Mr. Bureau. I thought Ms. Shannon would make it would happen. And other people have said they came to help. But you know what they did? They did a flip mode on the kid that they kicked off the team. DJ Hines kicked off a student based on one thing. He gave a good compliment to the team that beat them. I think it was Pete Knight, and he got kicked off the team. Chris Gradle didn't help. He didn't want to have another parent meetings. So let me say this before I go. I've watched people come in here, sit up in here, texting people. You worried about Miss Amanda Perel and everybody that sits here like you all raving about them. You all say, oh, and the public, and as Mr. Dan Shai says, the chaplain don't need they don't need Dr. Ruffin. Well, guess what? She's got enough balls and she's been brave enough to stand up to the corruption and the stuff that's going on. So we already know the contract's going to pass. If we think that's true, if it ain't true, look at who's moving out of this town. Just like your Trump people that do not care for Blacks and Browns, it's wrong. You should do better.
Thank you.
The last comment for non-agenda is Mr. Wellington.
Shout out to Chris for keeping us all safe. Thank you, my brother. Well, this is not about the sheriff's contract. During the pandemic time, you guys heard from me more than you've ever heard from me at board meetings. First time a couple of years ago was an AM meeting like this, and different majority, different board. But as it relates to our hybrid model going forward and the adjustments that we're going to have to make with meetings, coming here, just like coming to church meetings and things of that nature, something that we have to look at. We've got to consider, flex modeling. I really appreciate the ability to submit a letter, typed out and written out for the 3 minutes and prepared, as opposed to having to sit on hold. The first time that we went to that meeting, I was driving. I've been on hold for 70 minutes, somewhere around that point. And, it was really, I wasn't able to get across everything I wanted to get across. So I just want you guys to consider, as we teachers return to classroom, and as we consider the ways that we're going to do that. We're going to have in-person instruction. We're going to have synchronous. We're going to have asynchronous. We're going to use all of our modalities at our disposal. Google Classroom, Canvas, Apex, and all the different things that we have in addition, all the new things. And so I just encourage us to be just as flexible here. So the community members that they may be sick and shut in, we're familiar with, internet, church, and all those kind of things, and ways that we can attend meetings. And there are folks that are viewing this meeting, and YouTube is a wonderful outlet for that. But we also I would suggest that we consider continuing the reading. If I need to volunteer to come in and read some letters, then I'll do that, because I put my big, mouth in it. So I'll come in here and read a few of those and, do the best that I can. But just wanted you guys to consider that, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes all the public comment.
Thank you very much. We are at 7A on our agenda, educational services. We are reviewing the proposed revisions to board policy and administrative regulation for personnel services from CSBA's June 2021 recommended updates. This is a first read discussion. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees review proposed revisions to the board policy as presented. And again, that's a first read discussion. Moving forward to educational services.
Miss McGrady, I had some questions about this first read discussion. This is Dr. Ruffin.
Yes, ma'am.
This was for, hold on one second. I'm just trying to get my positioning. This is 7A, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have several concerns here. First of all, I want to thank everyone who came out to voice their opinions about law enforcement. This 7A is actually dealing with issues of the collective bargaining agreement, and it's addressing concerns of employee security. So I am going to go to, I'm on the second, this is regulation 4158 for employee security, if the board and the cabinet would like to follow. I think these issues are definitely in alignment with all of the concerns that were discussed today. At the top paragraph, it says that an employee may use reasonable and necessary force for self-defense or defense of a person. This is a very broad language. I think I heard someone who came to speak today. I'm not really sure what reasonable and necessary force is. One of my questions in this area is that needs to be defined, and does our staff have the appropriate training to provide reasonable and necessary force? And this is saying for all employees. Another concern that I have on this same page, it says, in addition, the employee and the principal or the immediate supervisor shall promptly report to law enforcement authorities. So the language here in and of itself has already predetermined that we're going to have law enforcement to some degree connected to our schools. They're supposed to report to law enforcement authorities an attack, assault, or physical threat made against an employee by a student. What exactly are we defining as an attack, an assault, a physical threat? There was a person that just spoke to us as a board that said his disposition as a Black man in and of itself within the community can be viewed as a threat. And we know that in the Antelope Valley, the Department of Justice has been here for a number of years, looking at the physical harm to African Americans within this community. I'm going to go down a little bit more. It says, when a student commits certain offenses that may endanger staff or others, the following procedures should be implemented to notify staff members as appropriate. It broadly states certain offenses. What are those offenses? As a board member, I would like to know what those offenses are. This is not an appropriate document to put something just broad out there. And then we have mention of AR 51441.1 under number 1. We have Education Code 49079, Education Code 48201. All of these codes are mentioned in here. Let it be clear, this board has one employee, and that is the superintendent. I do not work for the school district. It is not my responsibility to go research what these education codes are. This information should be provided to us as a board so that we can look at it in the context of which it's presented. I went down and I made other notes. In the section number 2, why would a court be notifying a school district and its personnel of personal information of students who have an interaction, a misdemeanor with law enforcement? It says right here that when informed by a court that a minor student has been found by the court to have committed any felony or any misdemeanor involving curfew, gambling, alcohol, drugs, tobacco products, carrying of weapons, a sex offense listed in Penal Code 290, assault or battery, larceny, vandalism, or graffiti, the superintendent or designee shall expeditiously notify the principal. And then it goes down further and it talks about teachers being aware of this information and counselors being aware of this information. Who's looking out for the students' confidentiality and their safety? We heard a counselor that just came in and said she thought she had built a relationship with the student and was protecting her, and the student ends up being arrested. So I can go so much further in depth. I'm looking at the second page, page 2. It talks again under D. When a student is removed from a school as a result of his or her offense, there's no description of what the offense is. Is the discipline file a part of our students' records? I've never heard of that. I've been in education for 23 years. It's a separate document. Is the assumption that all of our students are a part of the juvenile court if they have an interaction with police officers within the community? And who is monitoring this information for our students? None of this is written in detail in this document as it is presented. I go down on page 2 and it says, the superintendent or designee shall engage in a timely, good faith, interactive process with the employee to determine the effectiveness of reasonable accommodations. There's so much language in this document that's very broad, and it makes references to Labor Code 230. I have no idea what any of these codes mean, and I would like to be provided this information before this board votes on these situations. I have just a little bit more. Under number 4 on page 2, any other form of documentation that reasonably verifies that the crime or abuse occurred. What are we considering to be criminal? What I do know is, in most of our situations within this district, I have not heard of a lot of data regarding restorative justice practices. I think it was almost a year or 2 ago that we determined, or we were given information about what offenses for suspensions and expulsions were mandatory versus discretionary. And this document is very broad. And this is what we're supposed to be here for as board members. We're supposed to impact policy for the good of the students. This is an 80% minoritized community, 63% Hispanic, about between 14 and 17% African American are Black. And this policy definitely impacts them gravely. So I would like for this board to consider the ways in which we're quote unquote protecting our employees and make sure that this board, before we're able to make a decision, that we know what the Code of Civil Procedures 5278 is, that we know what Penal Code 18150-1870 is. And what are you defining as willful misconduct? This is on page 3. I mean, I don't understand how this document is highly weighted with law enforcement language, like this board has already made a decision that we're going to have law enforcement in this district. And I'm hopeful that we're paying attention to something that was said in the Board of Supervisors meeting. Do we have a system within Antelope Valley Union High School District that tracks how many teachers are making these reports? And when I was in LA Unified, we had an iStar system. Can we get a presentation to this board about that type of information? And I'm going to rest on that. I think that it's very imperative, and it's in alignment with what we're talking about with employee safety. We also need to be understanding of what is needed to guarantee the student safety as well.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments on this?
I do. I read the policy, and it is employee safety. And am I right? We do have policies concerning our student safety and our student protecting our students as well. I mean, this one is specifically employee security and safety. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's an existing board policy in which it's coming to you with changes based on new laws or new interpretation.
The new laws. Okay. Because I did notice that it's substantially stronger in its statements and its concerns than prior policy that addressed this. And this is from CSBA. So this goes to every district in the state of California. Is that correct?
That's correct. This is a board policy brought to you for a first read as it looks at the changes that are implemented in here based on new laws that the city of California has adopted.
Now, I found that the first paragraph, the governing board desires to provide a safe and orderly environment for all employees as part of the district's comprehensive safety plan. And by looking at this policy doesn't mean that I or any member of the board is ignoring student safety. But this one specifically is for employees. Am I correct? Thank you.
I also want to add that under regulation 4358, it says employee security. If you step down to paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, even if this is a document that is supposed to be for employees, it's highly associated with students. It says notice regarding student offenses. That's in bold. Again, I will ask, what specifically are we talking about are student offenses? This information needs to be provided to the board, even if it is a document that has an umbrella topic of employees. It is impacted by that employee's interaction with that student. And again, this parent came or a person from the community came and talked about his disposition as a Black man and how he's perceived. That's not a siloed opinion. I'm a Black woman and I'm perceived a certain way. I'm quite sure other Black people or people of color can speak to the way we're perceived. So this is the space where we deal with the policy as board members, and we should be very transparent about what we're calling student offenses, crimes, attacks, assaults, or anything of that nature, so that we're all on the same page.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we will move forward to 7B, Educational Services. This is the annual Title I LEA Plan Program Evaluation. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees review and accept the Title I LEA Plan Program Evaluation. May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second?
A second.
Thank you, Ms. Wynn. Do we have any discussion or comments?
Yes, this is Dr. Ruff, and I have some discussions.
Thank you.
On the first page, when it talks about AVUHSD, TI evaluation, and LCAP, Federal Addendum, Plan and Evaluation, it addresses the fact that we have approximately 2,100 students in our district. In the middle, it says that we're preparing them for college and career, to integrate academic and CTE development necessary for academic, technical, work-related skills of the 21st century. I do believe that at our last, the board meeting on June the 9th, I specifically asked Dr. Kelly about the classes that we have within our district that are making sure that the 2/3 of our graduating seniors are getting access to A through G requirements. Then I looked on the back of this sheet right here and I see it says, according to the LCAP, we're dealing with English language learners. Of course, we're dealing with foster youth and we're dealing with socially economically disadvantaged. Can somebody from this cabinet or Dr. Vieira share? It says here that it's 70.1% in our district that are socially economically disadvantaged. So what is that number? Because we don't have this number on this page. And then it shows that 9.8% of the 2,100 students are English language learners, and 1.8% of these students are foster youth. So when I dug a little deeper, and now I'm on page, we go through here, it goes through each one of the schools, and I looked at the number of students that we have under the Title I. If we have approximately 15,000 students in our district that are disadvantaged, socially economically disadvantaged, and we have roughly 1,696 English language learners, and we have 401 students in our system that are considered foster youth. I'm not understanding why this $117 million that we've gotten to support these students' academic success hasn't landed appropriately in these spaces where these students can benefit. And a deeper concern is with our long-term English learners. Does anybody know how many students within our district are considered newcomers to this district of this 1,696 students? Because those students are specifically the ones who would take the LPAC. So it seems to me like this information is out here, but it's not really showing us the impact of the dollars and the impact of the influence. Now, we did hire an equity person in this district. I don't know if this equity person has been meeting with you all to discuss these issues, or is there any data from a holistic perspective to really address the reasons why these students within our district are not performing? And this LCAP is supposed to address that, and I don't see this here.
Any other discussion or questions or comments?
Absolutely. I just had a comment. I noticed that both this report in 7B and 7C were both done by Julie Bella and her staff, or at least I'm hoping she has a staff, because this is quite intensive, and I just want to thank her for making this available to us. Thank you.
Having a motion and a second, we'll now call for the vote. Ms. Perrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady is a yes, so it passes by a vote of 3-1. We are on C, Educational Services, Local Control and Accountability Plan, LCAP Federal Addendum. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the LCAP Federal Addendum. May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Rush. Ms. Nguyen is a second. Do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll now call for the vote. Ms. Perrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush? Yes. Ms. McGrady is a yes. The item passes by a vote of 3-1. We are on D, Educational Services, Approved Experience Chemistry, California Edison, Savvis Learning Company, Experience Materials Kits, EVS 2021-22-045. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve Experience Chemistry California Edition, Savvis Learning Company, Experience Material Kits as presented. May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Rush.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. And do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll now call for the vote. Ms. Perrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. McGrady is an aye, so it passes by a vote of 4-0. We are on 8 personnel services action items. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve and direct the Assistant Superintendent of Personnel Services to submit a provisional internship permit, allowing this individual to teach in the subject areas indicated. May I have a motion?
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Neal, can I ask you, because I think that there's maybe a misconception on what a PIP is. Can I ask you to explain it just real quickly, please?
Well, the PIP or the provisional intern permit, as well as the short-term permits, are give us opportunity to adhere to the California Credentialing Commission. Teachers that are not yet fully credentialed, but that are working on their credential could still be brought on under contract. And these are appropriate credentials that are issued by CCPC.
Do most of these people eventually or end up getting their credential before the time? Because I know they have a certain amount of time.
Yes, they usually have within the school year, and the vast majority of them do. There are certain cases where we can apply for extensions, and we'll do that as we can.
Any further discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Burrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush? Aye. Ms. McGrady is an aye, so that one passes at 4-0. We are on D. It's recommended the Board of Trustees approve and direct the Assistant Superintendent of Personnel Services to submit a provisional internship permit allowing this individual to teach in the subject area indicated. May I have a motion?
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Burrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Rush? Yes. Ms. McGrady is a yes, so this one passes by a vote of 4-0. We are on C. It's recommended that the Board of Trustees approve and direct Assistant Superintendent of Personnel Services to submit a provisional internship permit allowing this individual to teach in the subject area indicated. May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Burrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen? Aye. Aye. Ms. Rush? Aye. Ms. McGrady is a yes. It passes by a vote of 4-0. We are on D, approval of an amendment to employment agreement for interim superintendent Shannon Williams. The board will be considering an amendment to the employment contract for Shannon Williams as the district's interim superintendent effective August 28, 2021. The amendment provides Ms. Williams with a 10% increase to her base annual salary while she is serving as interim superintendent. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the amendment to the employment agreement for the interim superintendent Shannon Williams. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Do we have any discussion?
Yes, I have some discussion. This is Dr. Ruffin. Unfortunately, the other day when we had that special meeting where we were talking about this, I wasn't called or notified in advance that that was set and was not able to change my schedule. And I'm sure other board members were given that luxury. That being said, I'm hopeful that this district is able to turn for the better after 24 years of nepotism and cronyism. I would love to have an interim superintendent that is neutral and transparent, not a part of the status quo or subjected to any of the status quo previous issues. Normally in previous districts that I've served in, and we've come to this juncture where we're looking at an interim superintendent, it is usually the practice that we would like to get somebody in the district that is neutral, unbiased, that can take pretty much the hits from the previous cabinet and prepare for that process of choosing a superintendent in the future. I'm not sure that has happened here. I'm also interested in possibly seeing a retired, seasoned superintendent that has no ties to the current leadership serve as our interim superintendent.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to make point of clarification that actual notification of the board meeting on the last one went to all board members. They did receive that. It did go out like it does at all meetings. So that did go out to Dr. Ruffin as well.
Thank you. Any
You're
other-
right, Dr. Vieira. You did send it out. However, I'm quite sure when you guys decided that you were going to have that meeting that day, that there was a pre-discussion to see whether or not board members were available. I never received a call. And I am asking, as we're moving forward, I don't check this email every day. I'm not an employee with this district. As a professional courtesy, you can call me on my phone, or whomever you choose to call me on my phone and leave a message. Thank you.
Having a motion and a second, we'll now call.
Ms. McGrady, I'd like to
Yes.
just comment. I was not confirmed upon whether or not we were, as a matter of fact, I have a doctor's appointment that I waited 2 months for. That was at the time of this meeting. So I was not, there was no collusion about having this meeting on a certain day. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you. Having a motion and a second, we'll now call for the vote. Ms. Burrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Brown egg violation.
No. Ms. Nguyen? Yes, we're voting on the agreement for, we're on D for Shannon Williams.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush? Aye. Ms. McGrady is on aye, so it passes by a vote of 3-1. We are on E. The board will be considering an amendment to the employment contract of Greg Meehan as the district interim deputy superintendent effective August 28, 2021. The amendment provides Mr. Meehan with a 5% increase to his base annual salary while he is serving as interim deputy superintendent. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the amendment to the employment agreement for interim deputy superintendent Greg Meehan. May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second? Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we will now call for the vote. Ms. Burrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin, how do you vote?
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. McGrady? Aye. So the item passes by a vote of 3-1. We are now on F. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the agreement PS number 21-22-01, agreement with the Los Angeles Sheriff Department School Resource Deputy Program as presented. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Neal, I think.
Yes, if you would allow me to make a couple of brief comments.
Yes, please.
Just one first one for clarification. If you notice on the item incorrectly states that the contract would be funded out of target dollars. That was stated as a general funded item. So that's, I just want to make sure that the board understood that clarification.
Thank you.
And then if you would indulge me for just a moment, just to provide you with a brief recap of where the district has been this past year regarding this topic. As you recall, the district did not renew the contract with the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department for this past year. We were in distance learning mode, as we all know, for the vast majority of the year, and did not need to have sheriffs on our campus since there were no students.
We don't need them anyway.
But this did provide us an opportunity to have a deeper, richer discussion regarding the role and partnership of the district with law enforcement. And so we had established a committee of stakeholders, of students, of parents, of community members, of teachers, to have a discussion of the role and hear from all sides of that. There's a number of individuals that wanted to participate in that who were not originally on there, so we increased the size of the committee. And as the interest grew, we felt it important to bring on an outside group that would allow us to help get a larger voice of the community. And so we contracted with the Collaborative Learning Solutions to look at surveys and focus groups and listening protocols.
Who cares about a survey?
As students came back on campus this spring, the board did enter into a short-term limited contract with the Sheriff's Department. And at that point, I know that the board had heard and entertained quite a number of comments on both sides of the argument from the community and being able to express their opinions on that. And then last of all, on the June 9th board meeting, the board was presented the findings and a report from the Collaborative Learning Solutions, which brings us to today and where you have the contract before you for your consideration.
Cancel
the contract.
Please, we need to control, please. Do we have any
Cancel the
further?
contract.
Do we have any?
Yes, Mrs. McGrady, I do have some comments that I want to add to this. Last year on July 23rd, 2020, this issue came up for discussion. It was item 11A on the agenda at that time. I specifically shared, and I want to thank everybody who came out to speak to this. We've received multiple emails from the community this week and also over a year ago expressing concerns about this very issue. On July 23rd, 2020, I asked about the 17% raise that we had given to our security personnel, who I believe it was shared that Lancaster Sheriff's Department had trained these individuals. This was directors of securities for each one of our schools. I'm looking at this report that was shared with us today, and it's not 1.6 million. It looks like it's $1.8 million on this piece of paper that I'm looking at. And excuse me, even with my glasses on, it's negative 35 font. So it must not be meant for me to really see it. But what I can see here is we're funding with this proposal 9 deputies in addition to a school resource deputy unit B1, I don't know what that is for 0.7, and a sergeant. We're funding an entire police unit out of Lancaster. When I asked this question a year ago, I still didn't get the response to that. Why are we only dealing with a sheriff's department out of Lancaster when the city of Palmdale is also covered by the Antelope Valley Union High School District? The shooting that happened at Highland High School is one of the 7 schools that are in Palmdale. That question hasn't been answered. These are the reasons why I have concerns with the ways in which we make decisions on this board, because it seems very pejorative to a certain position. And this is not about kids here. So I'm going to go a little bit further. The research from the outside Collaborative Learning Solutions, which, by the way, was provided to me this morning after I emailed Dr. Vieira several times. And I was able to share it out with other people within the community. That research came back in response to what was shared at the Board of Supervisors meeting, that school resource officers have no place in school districts.
All right, now.
So yes, that's what the report said. So I want to be very clear about what our responsibility as a district, because historically in this district, people have voted lockstep and not really addressed our constituents. We were voted in by the community to be for the community and by the community and not some other agenda. And anything less than supporting what the Board of Supervisors, what parents, counselors, students are saying that is happening to them in this school district, it cannot be ignored.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comments?
Recuse yourself, Bush.
I just have a short comment. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the people who shared their comments with me, both for and against having the deputies on the campuses. And some of you may know, I was previously on the board for 13 and a half years, and I walked the campuses, I worked with the students.
And the suspension rates didn't go nowhere. It was still bad.
Please be quiet or you need to leave the room. I'm asking you to please be quiet or leave the room. Please.
I want to see y'all move me about this room. That's what I'm saying. Because this is ridiculous.
Thank you.
I think the chairman comments were ridiculous. Thank you for your comments. as well. And I've walked to campuses, I've looked at the students, I've looked at staff. I don't see color. I see kids
That's the
who
problem.
want to learn.
That's the problem.
It's not a problem. You have no idea what my makeup is. You don't know that I'm part of that. Do you?
We all.
Because you need to see the kid in their heart. That's where you need to see them. And you need to care for them, and you need to care for the staff. These people come to school every day, they perform miracles, they help these kids, they help them get to places that maybe they never would have ever gotten as far as careers, maybe even socially and emotionally. And I care about them, and I care about the staff.
More than the students.
And I care so much so that I put my trust in the fact that this district has put together a multi-layered tiered safety program for each and every one of them. For each and every one of the people who are on our campuses. I can't gamble a single life. I can't gamble a single life.
It's not a gamble.
By voting yes.
Vote yes.
Ms. McGrady, if we are really paying attention to the report that, how much, Dr. Vera, how much did this district pay Collaborative Learning Solutions to do the report that they did, the research?
I believe the invoice was approximately $25,000 to $30,000. But while I'm speaking, I also have to make a point of clarification that the reports that you speak of were sent to you on 3 occasions. That was on June 11th, June 15th, and again this morning at 8 o'clock. So just point of clarification there. But Ms. Williams, you approximate cost of that?
Can you please share my screen so I can show the world and the community my emails from Dr. Vieira about when I got this report, so we can discredit that. Nevertheless, let me get to the point. We just spent $25,000 to $30,000 on an assessment that I'm quite sure this district wasn't in favor of, because it clearly said that it did not favor having RSOs in this community. And also was reported from the community members that the day before, Dr. Vieira, you voted against it anyway. So here's my thing. When I look at policy that I just read off, that's heavily weighted with law enforcement language, there appears to be a predetermination and a blatant disregard for the voices that are in this room and listening to these calls for help for our students. And I'm quite sure nobody in that room can understand that if they haven't experienced it. That's what it means to be having an unconscious bias to this process. But it's like we're talking to a wall because you continue to ignore and harm these students when you ignore what the $25,000 to $30,000 data came out and said. When you ignore the MOU that's going on in our community about the harassment of Black and brown students in this and citizens in this community. Look at this board. This board is predominantly non-minoritized, and it mirrors boards across California and the nation. Why is the 1% in a community making decisions for Black and brown people? That's a question we need to ask. And if you're really open to this process, you would have taken my advice and my suggestions of having Dr. Pedro Nogara, Dr. Tyrone Howard, Dr. Sean Harper come in and work with our staff to look at the data so we can have a holistic approach to how we are addressing the harm. But we're so afraid to hear from our community because, like Lieutenant Frank shared, there is a culture of fear in this community. That's why people don't want to speak up. I hope that this board is listening to the concerns of the students and the constituents that are paying your paychecks. If they were not here in this community, you wouldn't have a job or we wouldn't have a school district. Stop policing and criminalizing our kids and sending them on a pipeline to prison and educate them.
We have a motion and a second. We'll now call for the vote. Board, how do you vote? Ms. Perrell is absent. Dr. Robbins?
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. McGrady is a yes, so the item passes by a vote of 3-1.
Ridiculous.
Shame on you.
So the community doesn't matter.
So they don't
The kids
matter.
don't matter.
Y'all should be ashamed
We
of
are on
yourselves.
9A, business services action items. Conduct a public hearing to consider entering into an energy service contract, implement energy-related improvements. We'll open the hearing at 11:25. And do we have any comments from Mr. Hawkins? Oh, yes, we do. Thank you.
Excuse me, good morning, or, yep, still good morning. We're here to have a public hearing on the use of an energy services contract. And if you remember previously, the board approved an energy service contract about 3 months ago for new air conditioning units at the Lancaster High School. This is, these energy services contracts are covered under Government Code Section 421710, and it allows the district to pick the best company that can provide the services and still deliver a net cost savings to the district over time. The benefits of an energy services contract are that we're going to be able to replace several additional air conditioning or HVAC units that have reached the end of their life term. The benefits of replacing these units specifically on this contract would benefit the district about $129,000 annually due to lower energy and lower maintenance costs. If you remember a few months ago when we approved the energy services contract for the air conditioning units at Lancaster for the classrooms, that had about $160,000 savings. So combined between these two, we can anticipate about a $300,000 annual savings due to lower energy usage because these units are more efficient and a lot less maintenance because they're much newer. The advantage of using an energy services contract is that the contractor provides the architectural, the technical, the engineering, DSA approvals when needed, and the construction management. We can we can have the construction done much quicker. As board member Danita Nguyen was out yesterday, I understand, at Lancaster and saw us craning on. We craned on about 42 units yesterday. They'll be back again towards the end of July to do some more, to put more units on. One of the limitations we have is the amount of units available to purchase. But with that, we're able to provide brand new air conditioning units for our buildings and our classrooms. Specifically, this contract is looking at the much larger, the 25 to 30 ton units that are all have to be custom made that currently cool our administrative offices at Lancaster High School, at Little Rock, and at Highland. Those units had not been replaced previously. So these are multiple zone, multiple units that we have to custom order, and hopefully can get those in about 3 months because they have to be custom built. We're also looking at replacing the air conditioning at the large gym at Lancaster. I believe there's like 5 25-ton units that are on the roof to cool that facility. So we're looking at a combination of the administrative buildings as well as the gym at Lancaster. After this, assuming approval, we will have replaced all the air conditioning units at Lancaster, I believe at Little Rock and at Highland. Those two were done in the previous 2 to 3 years. So we're going to be generating the efficiency from all of those products. We'll be putting in some upgrades for the multi-zone units. We'll be putting in new thermostats for efficiency, things like that. We anticipate the savings of about $129,000 a month, and over the life of the unit, we'll save more money than we're going to spend today. And that's the key of an energy services contract. So our total savings should be around about $3.4 million over the life of the units. As you can see, we break it out because we have the Lancaster multi-zone. Multi-zone is for the administrative offices on those 3 school sites, and then as well as for the large gym, what the annual savings are. Adding them up, we can see that we're going to invest about 3.1 million, but we'll get about 3.4 million in savings. Best of all, we will be using our federal ESSER dollars for this, so we're not using any routine restricted maintenance or any actual general fund dollars. And we have already been, we have submitted and been approved by the CDE for this particular project. We're looking at a timeline of, excuse me, starting somewhere in the November area. Hopefully they'll be working over Thanksgiving break and then as well as winter break. And then if we need to conclude, it'll be over the spring break. And in summary, we'll be able to change these units out, get much more efficiency. So I'm sure this, they do air conditioning units, but I have to do my own house here shortly in what they call a SEER, S-E-E-R units. And these are probably a 5 SEER, and we'll be replacing them with like a 14 SEER. So the energy efficiency is much greater. About a 30% efficiency rating on that. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And Hopkins, I just have a question about AV and Palmville. I mean, they're the oldest schools in the districts. How are their air conditioning units?
They are not as, their units are not as old as other sites.
Oh, okay.
So they have been replaced more recently. Now, not that we won't have to down the road, but their units are not as old as the ones we're currently replacing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Close the public hearing at 11:32. We are on B, Energy Services Contract. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the contract award for energy services to Pacific West Energy Solutions to make the determinations in accordance with the California Government Code 4217. The project is in the best interest of the public agency. Number 2, the project's anticipated cost to the public agency for thermal or electrical energy or conversation services provided by the energy conservation facility under the contract will be less than the anticipated marginal price to the public agency of thermal, electrical, or other energy that would have been consumed by the public agency in the absence of those purchases. May I have a motion?
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. I need a second. Thank you, Mr. Rush. Do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Perrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye, Mr. Rush? Aye, and Ms. McGrady is a yes, and so the item passes by a vote of 4-0. We are on C. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees adopt ratified resolution number 2021-22-01, establishing the Student Activity Fund, Fund 08. May I have a motion?
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen, and Mr. Rush is a second. Do we have any discussion?
Yes, there's some discussion. Can someone provide some background on this? It's not a lot of information that was provided for Fund 08.
Yes, Fund 08 is a requirement of Csba, that's the Government Accounting Standards Boards, and it has to do with the accounting, bringing the accounting from our ASBs into our fund for reporting purposes for the state. So we will be taking all of the ASBs accounting at the end of each year or at the end of each quarter and loading it into our SAC system. So it is reported to the county and the state controller's office.
Okay, thank you. I want to add some information. On our April 21st, 2021 board meeting, we had EIDE Bailey come out and give an annual financial report. And I had an opportunity to finally speak with him after being denied on multiple occasions of my right as a board member to talk to our auditor. I want to reiterate some of the things that he and I talked about. We talked about the student activity funds from his report and detailed some information that had been shared with me from people within the community. And what he said to me and what he said to the public on that day is what he wrote in here. Our responsibility as prescribed by professional standards is to plan and perform our audit to obtain reasonable rather than absolute assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement. An audit of financial statements includes considerations of internal control over financial reporting as a basis for designing audit procedures that are appropriate in that circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the entity's internal control over financial reporting. Accordingly, as part of our audit, we considered the internal control of the district solely for the purposes of determining our audit procedures and not to provide any assurance concerning such internal control. I have asked last summer, I have asked now about 5 checks that still hasn't shown who has given permission to write those checks. I talked very extensively to the auditor about what was written in his report about the exchange of monies between our student stores and different things like that. It's not a lot of transparency about this. And now we're voting on this here. I'm not sure if we'll ever get a thorough audit because he's saying he did not do a thorough audit. But I would hope with this new superintendent, we can do a thorough audit of our finances and have some answers to the questions.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We'll now call for the vote. Ms. Farrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. Ms. Wynn?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush? Aye. Ms. McGrady is an aye. It passes 7-1. We are on D, consulting contract with National Roofing Consultants. It's recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the consulting contract for National Roofing Consultants Incorporated and authorize Brian Hawkins as authorized agent to execute the contract on behalf of the district. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Ms. Rush. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Wynn. Do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll now call for the vote. Ms. Farrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. Ms. Wynn?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush? Aye. Ms. McGrady is an aye, so it passes with a vote of 3-1. We are on E. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the consultant agreement with Brian Hayes for DSA inspection services in support of various small projects that through the district, and authorize Brian Hawkins to execute the agreement on behalf of the district. May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second?
Second.
A second, Ms. Wynn. Do we have any discussion? We have a motion and a second. We'll call for the vote. Ms. Farrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. Ms. Wynn?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush? Aye. Ms. McGrady is an aye, so it passes with a vote of 3-1. We are on F. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve food services participation in the AVUHSD's agreement with Driftwood Dairy for the 2021-2022 school year. May I have a motion?
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Wynn. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Farrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Wynn?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. McGrady is an aye. That passes 4-1. We are on G. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees award a contract with Denise K Designs and authorize Brian Hawkins to execute the contract on behalf of the district. This is for landscape design services for Palmdale High School of Quan. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Wynn. Do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Farrell is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Wynn?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush? Aye. And Ms. McGrady is a yes, so it passes 4-0. We are on H. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees award a contract with Western Pacific Roofing as the lowest responsible bidder and authorize Brian Hawkins to execute the contract on behalf of the district. May I have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Rush. A second.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Pearl is absent, and Dr. Ruffin.
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush. Aye. Ms. McGrady is an aye, so it passes with a vote of 3-1. We are on I. This is a change order that is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve change order number 1 to Reliable 4 Covering Incorporated and authorize Brian Hawkins to execute the change order on behalf of the district. May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Do we have any discussion?
Just want to thank you, Mr. Hawkins, for explaining the change order. Thank you.
Having a motion and a second, we'll now call for the vote. Ms. Pearl is absent. Dr. Ruffin.
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Rush. Aye. Ms. McGrady is an aye. It passes 3-1. We are on another change order. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve change order number 2 to Gary Little Construction Incorporated and authorize Brian Hawkins to execute the change order on behalf of the district. May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, we'll now call for the vote. Ms. Pearl is absent. Dr. Ruffin.
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush. Aye. Ms. McGrady is an aye, so it passes 3-1. We are on K. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the attached site lease agreement and memorandum of license agreement and authorize Brian Hawkins to execute the documents on behalf of the district. May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Pearl is absent. Dr. Ruffin.
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush. Aye. Ms. McGrady is a yes. It passes with a 4-0 vote. We are approving the consent agenda. Actions proposed for the consent agenda are items consistent with adopted policies and approved practices of the district and are deemed routine in nature. The board will be asked to approve all the items in the consent agenda by a single vote unless any member of the board asks that an item be removed from the consent agenda to be considered and discussed separately. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the items listed in the following consent agenda categories: educational services, student services, personnel services, and business services as presented. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. Do we have any discussion or would anyone like to pull any item?
Yes, this is Dr. Ruffin. I would like to pull several items.
Okay.
I would like to pull 10, F as in Frank. I would like to pull L, 11L as in Larry. I would like to pull 12G as in George. I would like to pull item 22000180 AV Press for $25,000. I would like to pull 2200277 Foundation Building for $50,000. And I would like to pull 15A and B, or I can just state right now that I want it on the record that I will be sending my comments for those 2 meetings.
And what was the very first one you listed?
10, F as in Frank.
I couldn't quite catch it. 10.
F as in Frank.
Okay. 10F.
I'm sorry, 11F. 11F.
710. Okay, I was gonna say, I guess I couldn't. All right. So are these for, you're pulling them for vote or you're pulling them for discussion?
I'm pulling 11F for discussion. I'm pulling 12G for discussion. I'm pulling 11L for vote. I'm pulling 22000180 for a vote. I'm pulling 22000277 277 for discussion. And like I said, for 15A and B, if it's appropriate just to say at this point that I'm going to add my board comments later for the records, then 15A and B can be a part of this consent vote.
Okay, I would suggest that we do the discussions first, so we'll start with 11F. Great, yes, I'm
I
sorry.
do have a,
I'm sorry.
item 11F and G. I just want to make a short comment.
Okay, all right. So we're on, I think those are on full voice as well. Okay, so on 11F, Dr. Ruffin?
So I was talking to some community members about this, and it's a little unclear. Why are we going into an agreement with Santa Barbara Community College? I looked through it very extensively, and it was just kind of an offset. On page 1, it says, the subcontractor has agreed to host the Strong Workforce Program K-12 Pathway Coordinator serving the Antelope Valley Community District. Santa Barbara is so far away from here. I'm not understanding this relationship.
Oh, Dr. Ruffin, this is Greg again, and this is an agreement that we're in our 3rd year of this, and the California Community College Chancellor's Office created a number of districts, and the only relationship we have with Santa Barbara Community College is that they are the lead agency. All of the strong workforce work, including this, is in support of the district and our relationships with Antelope Valley College. So it's on the administrative side, the way that the districts, community college districts and LEAs were grouped. And so Santa Barbara Community College is just our lead agency.
You said they're the what agency?
The lead agency.
The
They're
lead agency.
the fiscal agent.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. Ms. Wynn, did you have a comment on that as well?
I just want to thank Dr. McKinstry and her staff. So a lot of work putting together a grant application, and it's quite extensive, and I appreciate their work. Thank you.
That was for discussion. Let's go to the next one for discussion. You pulled, I believe, was 12G.
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on one second. I wasn't sure what exact services this provider is offering for medical for the district. We usually deal with nurses.
Yeah, sure, Dr. Ruffin. This is Ms. Williams. I can explain that to you. So we are required to have for our Medi-Cal billing services. This position provides consultation services for our requirement to have EpiPens on our campuses, as well as to provide consultation for our Medi-Cal billing.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much to who was the Mr. Nian for the first explanation, or was it? Yes. Okay, thank you so much for that. And then I don't know where you want to go from here, Ms. McGrady.
I believe you have one more for discussion on the foundations for the building, the last one you listed.
Yes.
Yes, that's the full name gets truncated. It's Foundation Building Materials. It's a general purchase order of $50,000 for the entire year. So it's not one item, it's for our carpentry electrical folks to go and purchase items. It would be similar to having a purchase order at Home Depot. Same idea.
So this is a separate company, because I saw several other of these POs listed for specifically for carpet and other things. So this is a specific company per se.
This is a separate, it's called Foundation Building Materials. It's a contractor type business where we can buy lots of building supplies. And we have several of those because we do look for the cheaper place to go.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you.
I believe that those are the ones that you wanted for discussion. And so let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Well, for 15A and B, it can be discussion as well. I'm just adding that I will be sending in my board comments for 15A and B.
I thought you stated that already. So let's call for the vote. Ms. Pearl is absent. Dr. Ruffin.
Yes, all except for the two that I haven't covered.
Right, we pulled those out. We're voting on those separately.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Nguyen? Aye. Mr. Rush? Aye. Ms. McGrady is a yes, so this passes by a vote of 4-0. So now we will go to 11L, and this is the agreement with Cafe Convention Radio. Dr. Ruffin. First, I need to get a motion.
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. All right. So let's hear your discussion. Dr. Ruffin?
I don't have any discussion. I just want to vote separately.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyone have any discussion they'd like to make? Any comments? Ms. Nguyen, I think that was one you said you wanted to comment on? No. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I skipped over those then.
No, no.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we'll call for the vote. This is for Cafe Convention. Let's see.
11L.
Ms. Pearl is absent, so it's Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Rush? Aye. Ms. McGrady is a yes, so that one passes with a 3-1 vote. And then the last one I believe that you pulled was for AV Press. Is that correct?
2200180.
So we need a motion to get it on the floor.
Motion.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. And discussion or comments? Okay, we'll call for the vote, and Ms. Pearl is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
No.
No. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush? Aye. Ms. McGrady is an aye, so it passes with a 3-1 vote. Okay. Bear with me a moment, please. From the board of superintendent. Okay, Dr. Ruffin, do you have any comments for this evening?
Sure. I just want to really thank all the parents, the community members, members of council, the contract, school district staff who came out today to voice their opinions and concerns about our students. I really know that it takes a village to shift the needle of justice for our students. And I encourage you all to continue to stand up and voice your opinions to implement a sense of justice and equity in our educational system. Education is supposed to be a great equalizer. This past year, we as a nation have witnessed the depth of the systemic and systematic harm afflicted on members of the community at national level: George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. All Black citizens harmed by offensive policing on innocent individuals within our collective communities. And what was their harm? The one thing that they had in common was their skin tone. It is the responsibility of this board to address issues of discipline. It is the responsibility of this board to look critical at the policies and how they impact the greater good. And it should be for the common good. And that's not what we witness here today on this board. Decisions that were made here serve a small majority, and big platforms across the nation are addressing these issues. And we made it a point as a board to stand in alignment to harm the students of this district. I am hopeful as we move forward that we can continue to celebrate wonderful and amazing educators within our school district, like Dr. Harris and the work that he's doing over at Palmdale High School, or Tweety Ferguson and the work that she's doing at her school. The numerous teachers and counselors whose voices are not heard because of this shadow of fear within this district. Recently, I was even censored for speaking out on this board, and that's a violation of my First Amendment rights because things that I say don't align with the status quo. But one thing for sure is we are supposed to be a democratic democracy. We're supposed to be a democracy in this nation as Americans. And that's not what I have felt, and many others have felt doing this type of work. In the state of California, there are numerous African American and Black elected school board members. As a matter of fact, these Black women make up over 50% of the elected votes of African Americans in any elected position. And I'm not siloed about the way that I'm being treated on this board. They're being treated the exact same way. And we get a report from a superintendent in Arizona where these same behaviors are happening. This is an atrocity to the wellness of our students, and everybody benefits when students are included and they feel included, when staff feels included. But I want to just give an example of what happened today. We went into closed session, and according to our board bylaws and government code 54957, it says that a legislative body may meet in closed session if agreed upon by 2/3 vote of the members of the legislative body present. This did not happen today. We didn't take a vote to go into closed session, but we still went. And these are the things that I bring up and that I was elected to bring up on this board. The policy issues that we don't follow as board members, just to benefit somebody else's greater good. So I am hopeful that we will continue to roll up our sleeves, that we will be drum majors for justice as we continue to fight for it, no matter how hard it gets, because no matter how hard it gets, we are here to represent our students. This is not an adult agenda. Our students should be first. And I'm hopeful for that. I'm asking everyone to have a safe and be well until we meet again. And I'm hopeful that we can come back and have further discussions with whoever will be our future superintendent of this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn.
I think I probably said enough today. Thank
Ms. Rush. I don't have anything, Dr. Vieira. Okay, no comment. So I do need to report out from closed session. Members who were present, Benita Wynn, John Rush, Bill McGrady. Members who are absent, Amanda Burrell, Victoria Ruffin. During closed session, the board held a conference with labor negotiator, Mr. Brett Neal, regarding the certificated bargaining unit, classified bargaining unit, and unrepresented group, and with labor negotiators, David J. Vieira, PhD, and J. Colonel Attorney, Fagan Friedman, and Full Frost LLP, regarding unrepresented employee interim superintendent and unrepresented employee interim deputy superintendent, and the board took no action. During closed session, the board considered a public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reassignment, non-elect, and the board took no action. During closed session, the board considered employee appointment title vice principal. On a motion by John Rush, seconded by Benita Wynn, the board appointed Brianna Rivera as a vice principal by the following votes. Ms. Pearl is absent, Dr. Ruffin absent, Ms. Wynn, yes, Mr. Rush, yes, Mr. Brady, yes. So the item passes by a vote of 3-0. During closed session, the board considered employee appointment title vice principal. On a motion by John Rush, seconded by Benita Wynn, the board appointed Ann Kerr as a vice principal by the following votes. Ms. Burrell absent, Dr. Ruffin absent, Ms. Wynn, yes, Mr. Rush, yes, Ms. McGrady, yes. So the item passes by a vote of 3-0. During closed session, the board considered employee appointment title coordinator of student support services. On a motion by John Rush, seconded by Benita Wynn, the board appointed Yasmin Durano as the coordinator of student support services by the following votes. Ms. Pearl absent, Dr. Ruffin absent, Ms. Wynn, yes, Mr. Rush, yes, Ms. McGrady, yes. So the item passes by a vote of 3-0. During closed session, the board considered a request to waive helpful living for an Antelope Valley Union High School District student. On a motion by John Rush, seconded by Benita Wynn, the board approved the request by the following votes. Ms. Correll absent, Dr. Ruffin absent, Ms. Nguyen, yes, Mr. Rush, yes, Ms. McGrady, yes. The item passes by a vote of 3-0. During closed session, the board considered case number 20 STCD 32678 of the existing litigation pursuant to subdivision D1 of the Government Code Section 54956.9. The board took no action. And finally, item G, during closed session, the board considered one case of anticipated litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 or 3 of subdivision D of Government Code Section 54956.9, and the board took no action. May I have a motion for adjournment?
I so move.
Ms. Nguyen, thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. Do we have any discussion? Having a motion and a second, call for the vote. Ms. Correll is absent. Dr. Ruffin?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Nguyen?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Rush?
Yep.
Yes. And Ms. McGrady is a yes. The item passes by a vote of 4-0. And that concludes our meeting for today. Thank you.